lot of times people are like, well, no, Mariam, that's not the case. If I knew somebody before I married them, I would know exactly how he was or exactly how she was, right? So that form of getting to know each other, I wouldn't even call it halal dating. I feel like that's just an essential part of getting to know each other. And yes, everyone should do that before they get married, as long as you don't get too carried away with your anxiety and your red flags, and everything doesn't turn into a red flag. That form of halal dating, or whatever you want to call that, would be a Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So what is the concept of halal dating in Islam? Today, inshallah, we're going to be discussing this, and we're going to be answering this question. And we're going to be talking about what this concept is. And then, inshallah, I will be giving you my input on it and my thoughts on it. And what are the outcomes and the consequences of this, right? So first of all, dating in Islam. And this is something that a lot of the youth, they reach out about. Not just the youth, you have couples like who are, in their, or not couples, but you have people in their late 20s, in their 30s, who are looking to get married, and they want to know what is the way of knowing or finding out if the person that you are potentially wanting to marry, if that person is compatible with you, right? So the concept of dating is basically that you hang out with this person, you eventually do everything together. And a lot of times, of course, you now fall in love and you're not married to this person yet. And you think you're going to get married to this person, and then things do happen along the way sometimes, and those relationships break. So what is the Islamic concept on getting to know a potential significant other before getting married? And people have found different ways to go about this to make it halal. Because generally, and this is something that everybody agrees on, that, a boy and a girl, a man and a woman cannot be in a relationship in Islam outside of marriage. There is no such thing as an intimate relationship outside of marriage. But people have, found these ways where they try to get to know the other person as much as they can before marriage, and they give it a halal look, or a halal cover, or a halal disguise, whatever you want to call it. Now, in the past couple of years, it was only done one way, where it was like there was the girl and the boy, right, or the man and the woman, and then there was a third person who would be with them when they were meeting in a public space, or they would be meeting anywhere. There would be a third person. It's normally the girl's brother or cousin, or someone from her family as a chaperone, or sometimes it's from the boy's family as a chaperone, and they're basically there, but they're not in the conversation with them. And a lot of people, they go this route, and they go on many different, they have many different meetings this way. Now, this is actually one of the ways that is permissible to get to know somebody else. There's no concept of, just goofing around and just wasting somebody's time and just being flirty, whether it's a Muslim boy or a Muslim girl. There's no concept of that in our religion, because haya, or modesty, is one of the foundations of Islam, right? So this is after you actually are serious about somebody, now you get to know them. But the issue with this is, a lot of times the getting to know meetings are so many, right, that at the end, it actually creates more problems than actually solving an issue or actually getting somewhere. Why? Because, let's be honest, no matter how much you know somebody, you will only see their true colors after you start living with them, after you're actually married to them. And this is a very controversial conversation, because a lot of times people are like, well, no, Mariam, that's not the case. If I knew somebody before I married them, I would know exactly how he was or exactly how she was, right? But why would we have a lot of failed marriages that were actually love marriages, where people actually knew each other? And I'm talking about even in the non-Muslim community, that there are so many marriages where people knew each other for years, and then they got married and the marriage did not work out. And the reason is because once you start actually having those responsibilities of a husband and wife, things are very different, and you realize that not everything is, rainbow and unicorns. Things are very different, and a marriage is not something that is so easy as a relationship was, because you did not have any obligations on each other. You did not have any expectations from each other more than, paying for dinner or being on time to a dinner or, something of that sort, right? So that is why getting to know somebody before marriage, that is actually perfectly fine in Islam, right? So that's the first thing to keep in mind, that this idea that you don't need to know this person before marriage, and this idea that in some cultures that you only meet your husband or meet your wife after you get married to them, that is actually wrong. It is actually sunnah to see your potential spouse and to actually, get to know them before marriage. But how much is that get to knowing? And, a lot of times when I come across these 100 questions to ask before marriage and 15 questions to ask before marriage, I'll look at those questions. They're all over the internet. And it's so funny because, of course, anybody can prepare for those questions. You have them right in front of you. You can actually do your homework and go and meet this person and answer everything the right way, right? So those questions are good to ask or good to keep in mind, but those questions do not determine everything. Then I also come across a lot of girls who have so many, concerns. Everything is a red flag. I spoke to him and, he doesn't know how to cook and he doesn't know how to do his laundry. And he'll be saying, oh, she doesn't want to live with my parents. And all of this turns into like red flags before they even get to the marriage part. That is why it's important to know our own values. It's important to know what is the make and break in your marriage. What really does matter for you in your future life, right? And having that in mind and having these conversations and having a chaperone there. Now, that form of halal dating or whatever you want to call that would be okay, right? I personally feel that there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you have a third person with you, your parents are on board. Having your parents on board is very important. And this is something I want to say to parents right now, that a lot of parents come to us with concerns about their sons or their daughters, doing things behind their back. And they're in their, 20s and 30s. And it's like, they're not married, but I know that she wants to get married to somebody. I know that he wants to get married to somebody, but they're not telling me, and I'm finding these things out. We have to understand we're in 2024. And if we want our children to live a halal, happy life, we also need to have open conversations with them. Our daughter and our son should be able to come and tell us, like, look, so-and-so person, I met them once or twice, or, they have shown their interest in me, and let's talk to them. Instead of them going behind our backs, doing everything, and once things are way out of control, that's when we find out. The importance of wali in a girl's life is not just as a guardian, not just as a protector, but it's also, a wali should also play the role of understanding, his daughter, understanding, or his granddaughter, or whoever the girl is that's under his responsibility. So for the boys and the girls, right, the parents need to really understand that the more you open up, the more you have these conversations, the more you become open-minded, the more culture and caste doesn't become the most important part in your life, and you're actually open to a good Muslim husband and a good Muslim wife, the easier time your children will have to find their potential spouse, and they'll actually live a happy life, inshallah. So that's something I wanted to talk about, the chaperones, that the chaperones who accompany the girl or the boy or the male or the female, depending on their age, to these so-called halal dates, they should also be open-minded. And, you don't have to get involved in everything. You just sit there. You're just there to make sure that there's a third person there at that point, because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a hadith that if there's a man and a woman by themselves and there's no third person, the third person is actually shaitan, right? Because he does entice you to say certain things or do certain things. So that form of getting to know each other, I wouldn't even call it halal dating. I feel like that's just an essential part of getting to know each other. And yes, everyone should do that before they get married, as long as you don't get too carried away with your anxiety and your red flags, and everything doesn't turn into a red flag. Now, there is a second form of halal dating that it has actually been around for a while, but now it's becoming more and more prominent, and people are actually openly doing this. And this is that two people, they actually get married. They actually get their nikah done. They go to the masjid. There's witnesses. They get their nikah done. And the purpose of this nikah is so that they can hang around with each other without a third person and get to, but the purpose is to get to know each other. Now it blows my mind because you're actually getting married, right? And marriage in Islam is very sacred. You're actually getting married, but the purpose of your marriage is not that you're going to live a life and you have some goals in your life and you're actually going to maintain a home or a household and have a family. The purpose is so that we can go on trips together. The purpose is so that we can, go and hang out without any third person involved. We don't want a third wheel. We don't want a chaperone. And I'm sorry to say that as halal as this is, these types of conversations and these types of arrangements, they a lot of times turn into a heartbreak for both parties. And of course, let's be very honest, who loses the most in these kind of relationships? It is the girl, right? Because now, she has been married to this person. She's been, everybody knows about it, of course, and which is how a marriage is supposed to be. It's supposed to be public. You're not supposed to have a secret marriage. And they decided that things do not work out. And now they go in separate ways. And for her, that experience becomes traumatizing. And of course for him as well. And it's going to be very hard for them to actually go ahead and get married again with the goal of, we're actually going to start a family, right? Marriage is not a musical chairs game that let's see how halal how I can turn this dating halal. Let me get my nikah done. If she's good, alhamdulillah. If she's not, I'll just divorce her. She's saying if he's good, alhamdulillah. If he's not good, I'll divorce him. That is not the niyyah. That is not the intention of marriage. Of course, if somebody gets married and things do not work out, by all means, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the option of talaq and khulla, right? Divorce from the man and, divorce from the woman, khulla from the woman. Both options are there. But literally getting married or getting into this marriage just for the sake of getting to know each other and being able to date halal and travel halal with no intention of a long-term relationship, that is not something that's actually playing games with Islam. That is actually, making a fool or making a joke out of Sharia, that we're going to go through these loopholes and we're going to get married, but it's going to be more of a halal dating. Now, is this halal or haram? Yes, it's halal. I mean, yes, you got married to somebody, your parents knew about it. It's a public marriage. Everybody knows about it. You have two witnesses. But if your intention at this point between you and your husband or you and your wife is that the purpose is just that, we can hang out together and make it halal and we're going to figure out what we want from life after this, you are mocking nikah. You're mocking marriage. You're not only mocking Sharia, you're actually making a fool out of your parents as well, and the elders and the community. Right? And this is not something that I'm just talking about that hypothetically could happen. This happens. It happens on a lot of college campuses. It happens, generally it happens in many communities. In a lot of college campuses, unfortunately, there's no wali even at that point. The parents don't even know. It's just for the time being, things are made halal. Right? And girls, especially, you need to understand that you lose more in these relationships than him. I'm not saying he doesn't. I don't want to hurt anyone's sentiments. I'm not saying that he doesn't lose anything. Yes, of course, he probably, he has emotions, he has feelings as well. But you're basically a woman. She has a lot to lose in these kinds of arrangements and relationships. What if you end up expecting? Now you're going to be raising this child by yourself. Right? Of course, the child is going to be, the custody is going to be given to the mother when the child is a baby, right? So now you have more responsibilities on you. And it all started, why? Because you were looking for a halal way to date. So in conclusion, getting married to somebody without ever knowing them, right? That is wrong as well. That's not something, if somebody wants to do that, I mean, that's up to them. But Islamically, that's not something that's promoted. So saying that, Islam does not allow you to know your potential spouse, That's wrong, because Islam allows you with a certain values, with certain rules. And that rule is that you meet this person in a public space. You have somebody with you sitting in the car or whatever, sitting in the other corner of the restaurant while you have a conversation with this person. And make sure the conversation is meaningful. Make sure you're actually talking about what you want from this marriage. Asking somebody their favorite color and, their favorite type of car, that's not going to affect your marriage in any way. Asking him questions like, if you're a working woman, asking him questions, how does he feel about a working woman? If your hijab and, your shari, like if you are on a different level of religious understanding, like letting him know that, look, like I am going to be wearing full hijab at our family gatherings. That's something that's very near and dear to me and I follow it. Talking about these kind of things, talking about, let's just say you have elderly parents and you want to know, how much he's going to be involved in helping you take care of them, having that conversation with him. And for the men as well, for the boys and the men as well, that, if living with your parents is a top priority and you have to do that because there's nobody else to take care of them, have that conversation right off the bat. Don't keep her in the dark. If you don't want a woman who has a career, then, I would say don't drag these conversations. A lot of times I see young couples, they string each other along. The first 2-3 meetings are about favorite color and favorite movie and, what classes are you taking in college? And then after the third and the fourth meeting, when they're both actually enjoying talking to each other, then it's the hardcore stuff like in-laws and work and education and, things like that. And that's where everything stops. And that experience becomes so negative that that couple, that individual, the boy and the girl, they don't for a long time, they don't go ahead and they look for somebody else in their life, right? So get to know somebody the proper way. Have a chaperone with you. Ask questions that are actually meaningful, right? And leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can know somebody inside out. You can know them since you were from your childhood. They can be your, so-called best friend, right? Which is a whole other conversation. Can you have guy friends or can you have friends who are girls? They can be somebody you know really well, right? But after marriage, anything can happen. So don't hold yourself back thinking that I'm not going to get married because I don't know this and I don't know that. Ask as much as you can. Leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But definitely, please do not go to the route of getting your nikah done just to get to know somebody, spend time with them by yourself, sometimes potentially end up having children even, but your entire intention was, I'm just going to get to know this person. That is wrong. It is mocking Sharia and it is mocking our values. I hope this video was helpful, inshallah. And if you guys have any more questions about the halal way to get to know somebody or the concept of halal dating, or should we even use this concept or not, please leave your questions and comments in the comment section below. And if you guys like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe. Inshallah, see you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.